Hello, Greyhounds. It's Mrs. Milton here. I have our week 3 Dreambox results, and I'm once again so impressed at what a great job you are all doing in this Dreambox challenge. I have to start though with a big shout out to Miss Brown's class. Her students had 100% participation this past week. So that means that every single student in her class logged into Dreambox and spent some time completing lessons. Not everyone completed 5, but it's pretty awesome when a whole class logs in and completes at least one lesson. So I think that should be a challenge to the rest of the classes to try and get as many of you on Dreambox and learning as we can. We are going to probably have an assembly this week, maybe on Friday. I just have to touch base with Mrs. Racy, and we might do a draw this week. If not this week, we will do it early next week based on our numbers so far. So I'll be putting all of the ballots probably into a virtual draw box, and we will do a little live assembly so that we can see who wins the prizes that Mrs. Racy is so gracious to purchase for you guys. So we're really excited about that. But let's get to the data from this week. And I do love hearing the stories of the classrooms talking and having data talks about their data and the school's data. That's really cool to use your own data that you're collecting and producing to talk about it. So good job doing that. So we're going to start with the primaries, and you'll notice that this week I've split the information into primary and junior. So primary is grades 1, 2, and 3, and junior is grade 4, 5, and 6. So I just decided to split it up so that we could see some different stories happening. So I'm going to go through these quicker than you might in your class. Your teachers can stop. They have the slideshow. They can stop and go through them with you. And you might notice that I've done some things that maybe I shouldn't have done, or I've forgot some things in the graph. And I really want you to be thinking about what a really great graph should have so that it can tell a story to whoever is viewing it. So one of the questions that I always ask is, what story does this graph tell us? So I'm wondering, as my primary friends and even the junior friends are looking at this graph, I'm wondering what kinds of things you can tell me based on the information you see in this graph. And one thing that teachers can do is in the slideshow, if you actually, when you're not on present, up in the top corner here, there'll be a link, and you can click that link and it'll take you to the Google Sheets file that I've made this in, and you'll actually be able to find some of the raw data, we would call it, by just scrolling over top of each of the bars. It'll give you a little bit more information. So that might be something that you want to check out. It's a little bit messy in that Sheets file, teachers, but have a look and it'll tell you a little bit more information. But I'm actually wondering if you could look at these graphs and tell me exactly how many lessons each class had in week 3. I'm wondering if that's possible looking at this graph. So that could be something you talk about as a class. I'm also wondering if you're noticing some differences in these graphs from last week to this week. So try and talk about that. Your teachers can go back in this slideshow and see if you notice anything different about these graphs. So here's another primary graph. Okay, and I said on here that I forgot a few things on this graph. And I want you to see if you can look at this graph and think about what might be missing, and if those pieces of the graph were there, would it help you to tell the story in a more effective way? This is an interesting question right here about a trend. So if we look at all of these classes, and it doesn't matter if you're in primary or junior, you can look at the data and try and determine what I'm talking about. So I said that there's one class that is following a different trend than the rest. Can you predict which, or tell which one and explain why based on what you see? And you and your teachers can have a look at that and discuss maybe what a trend means. And then we have another graph for our primaries. So again, you can have a look through there when you're looking at the slideshow and check this out. And now I know what everyone is looking for is they're looking to see their names up on this board, and try and figure out for me how many ballots you should be getting. If your name is on this page, how many ballots should you be getting? Remember, for every 5 lessons, you get 1 ballot. So have a look at these results and see if your name's up there. And some of you, again, this week, you might have had 3 lessons or 4 lessons. So try really hard to get to that 5 so your name can be up here next week. One thing that I did this week as well, and I'm going to go through them kind of quickly, is that I did some class by class data. I've created this graph here for each class. And this is an interesting graph. Some of our junior classes may have seen this type of graph this year, so they might be able to tell you what it's called. But I have a feeling that some of my primary friends will be able to make a prediction of what they think this graph might be called. So think about the questions that are on this page, but then go find your class data and really try and think about what is the story that your class data is telling. And then I've done all the same things for our junior friends. We have some similar graphs. Okay, and there's some questions there that our junior friends can think about as well. There's also, it was interesting, both classes or both divisions, so primary and junior, both had this one class that was following a different trend than the other classes. And I'm wondering if you guys can figure that out. So really have a look and try and determine which class that might have been. And there's some more. And then here's our junior friends that made the leaderboard this week with at least 5 lessons. You can see that some of our friends had a lot more than 5 lessons. I wonder how many ballots, how many times more than 5 did they do? So everyone who did at least 5 lessons, definitely give yourself a pat on the back. And for those of you who completed more than 5 lessons, that is amazing. You are really dedicated to Dreambox. And again, a big shout out to Miss Brown's class, because every single student in the class participated. Like I said, you won't see all of the names on here because some of them might have had 4 lessons or 3 lessons. Some of them had 1 lesson, but it's a pretty big accomplishment when every single student in the class logs in. So that would be awesome if we could see that next week as well. And then we also have the class by class data with a couple different questions for our junior friends that you can have a look through. So I will keep your teachers posted about when we're going to have that live assembly to talk about who might be winning a prize for all of this hard work. And I look forward to seeing your numbers for this week as well. Great job, Greyhounds.